Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey folks, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dylan Silver, and on this episode we have Casey Conklin, based out of Michigan. He is a real estate attorney. Casey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And before we were hopping on here, I let you know, hey, I think you're my second attorney that I've had on the podcast. So I'm always glad to have this perspective because I tend to think you can't have enough feedback in your back pocket when you need it, right? You want to have it when you can. So how did you get into the real estate space?
It kind of happened by chance, really. So, through law school, I knew one thing, and that was I didn't want to be in court. So I went the route of corporate law. So I have a background in, contracts and intellectual property, sports and entertainment law, and estate planning. Um, and then when I got out, I realized that, uh, if I wanted to make money, I was going to have to do some things that had me end up in court. So I spent the first couple years, basically doing whatever people were willing to pay me to do, which ended up being a few litigation things. And that's when I ultimately realized I never want to go to court again. So I started working with an attorney friend of mine who is also a licensed realtor and a licensed broker. I was working with him as a law clerk and just learned the area, and then it just kind of grew from there. And then, when I started my own practice, I had the knowledge to start bringing those types of clients in.
Casey, when I hear about attorneys, and I've had a couple friends and relatives who are attorneys. I'm not at all in that world, other than just being involved in real estate. But it does. I don't necessarily know if I would like being in the courtroom as well. So I guess selfishly, because I'm curious, what percentage of attorneys are day to day in the courtroom, or that's a big part of their life, and what percentage of attorneys are not in the courtroom?
So it's actually even the attorneys that interact with the court all the time. So, the civil litigators, personal injury attorneys and stuff like that, they actually don't go to court very often. Um,
Hmm.
it is somewhere around 95% of cases get settled before it gets to court.
Wow.
Um, so the ones that are in court are, the ones that really can't, the ones that are in court all the time are the ones that can't avoid it. So it's a lot of criminal defense.
Yeah.
They're always in court because that's, what they do mostly. Divorce attorneys, tend to go a little more often, things like that. But, I have a, I have a litigator that works for me, and he's actually only in a courtroom, I don't know, maybe a week or two out of the year
Hmm.
total.
So when people are I guess, newer out of law school. But I guess at any point in time, right? If you don't have that court experience, to me, and maybe I'm the only one that thinks this way, but to me, that's a lot of pressure to go into a courtroom where there's an opposition and you have to think on the fly. You don't have. It just seems like a degree of difficulty of the judge sitting in front of you, and I don't know. I'm of course probably using the wrong terminology here, but what do attorneys do to prepare themselves? Like even I would say like emotionally for the level of pressure. Is it kind of a sink or swim thing?
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
It is a little bit, but they do. So I've never actually worked for another attorney as an attorney. Right out of law school, I started working on my own. I had a newborn at the time, and I just figured I'd start taking clients. But most of the time, especially with litigators, you need to start with that seasoned attorney and then go to court with him or her several times and just kind of sit there and sit at the table and take notes and watch. And that's how you kind of get into it. Um, but my first time in court, I didn't have any of that. And I kept getting in trouble because I didn't know the rules. Like the judge is like, "It's
Yeah,
not your
it's
turn to talk," or
confusing.
"Why we're not talking about that now." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, what? Just let me know." But yeah, it's usually something where you want to tag along with somebody who's been doing it, and then go from there.
So, this is my only frame of reference here at Casey, but I just got my real estate license in Texas last week, right? And it's interesting because they give you all this real estate law and then say never use it. You can't never use it, but you have to know all of it, but do not use it. You know, the acts and the agencies and the years, what you can and can't do, how to fill out the contract. So, in effect, all of the realtors that I know say, I knew most about the real estate laws right when I left school. Is there a little bit of that? Like, if you don't start getting into the courtroom, like right after you get out of law school, that this can be a little bit, I don't want to say tedious, but it can seem like a giant task to then have to go and remember all the rules and procedures of the court.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that with most professions. So if I were to go to court right now, I think the last time I was in a courtroom would have been 2017,
Yeah,
I think.
8 years ago.
So yeah, so if I were to go to court right now, I would have no idea what I'm doing. I would not be able to do it. Um, Not just the procedure, but the areas that take you to court. I
Yeah.
don't work at I don't study those, so I don't know those off the top of my head. So yeah, I would have to do a significant amount of research and prep if I wanted to go sit in a courtroom.
I didn't realize that. I was sitting here thinking, you gave the number and I could believe it. Majority, 90%, right? But here I was thinking like every attorney is in court all the time. But you go from that experience. You mentioned a couple of different areas, sports, so on and so forth, to then being a law clerk, working for a real estate attorney. At that point, was it kind of like an aha moment? I'm going to do this for an extended period of time, carve out a niche here, or was it like, let me see how this goes and take it from there?
So there's there's really two ways that people go about it. There's the I'm going to be a general practice because I don't want anybody that walks into my door, I don't want to have to tell them no.
Yeah.
And then there's the I want to have a niche. I'm going to tell people no, I'm only going to work in these areas and I'm going to be the expert in these areas. The attorney that I worked for that has the real estate license, and he's also a licensed contractor as well.
Mm,
He is more of the general practice. I do anything. He does divorces, he does probate, he does
mm.
estate planning, he does some criminal defense, and just working in that type of office. I saw the benefits of it because, there was never a time when somebody would come in, he'd say, "Well, I don't do that, but I got a friend who does." Whereas I'm saying that all the time. But um I decided at that point that I didn't want that. I, it's too scatterbrained for me, right? You're going to go from working on a criminal case to drawing up an estate plan to signing contracts. And I just decided that wasn't for me at that point. And so um when I started to narrow down my focus, what I started to do along with that was build up a relationship. So if because and you probably see this in your own life. If somebody is a lawyer, you think they know all law, right? So I get
Yeah.
questions all the time for these areas that I've never worked in. So what I've done is I've built up a network of attorneys throughout the state of Michigan that work in these areas that I don't, so that when somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I need this," I can say, I can't do that, but I know somebody who can, and then refer them on from there.
If you're looking for consistent, high quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency, it's the most sophisticated, data driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
Casey, before we hopped on here, you mentioned a couple areas in the real estate space, trusts, tax, law. And I'm thinking there's a couple other areas which I'm selfishly interested in here in Texas, right? But uh, do you see that real estate attorneys will have maybe one or two areas that they specialize in, and then won't deal so much with like evictions and squatter situations, or pretty much if you're in real estate, anybody that comes to you with any real estate contract, this that, you have to be able to handle all of it.
Yeah, so it's a mix. There are those ones that'll handle all of it, but again, that's not me. So there's definitely a lot out there that are like me too. So if you came with me with a landlord tenant issue, I'm passing that on. That's it's landlord tenants are ones, they're low dollar amounts, and they're, quick turnaround, and you're in court a lot.
Yeah.
Um so me, I'm more of a purchase and acquisition type. I focus on the contract areas of it. Um, adverse possession type stuff. I don't really do that either because again, that's more litigation. So it just depends on the attorney. If the attorney is a litigator by nature and does the contracting and that stuff as well, then they're going to do it all. But if they're like me and they're not a litigator and don't ever want to be again, they're going to stay away from certain areas.
It seems like a lot of stress. I mean,
It is.
just a lot of pressure. There's a famous case here on national news. There was this ASAP Rocky case, which was a criminal
Yep.
case, and there was a an attorney from my neck of the woods, I believe was New York and New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey originally. And just watching him talk about the preparation for this criminal, and of course, not all people are in court for criminal reasons, right? But I'm like, of course, the defendant is going to be stressed, but the attorney being that stressed too, I was like, wow, it's a lot. So I definitely hear where you're coming from there, Casey. But pivoting a bit here, in and you may not be able to answer this. I totally understand that, but I'm curious to what your perspective is on this. In Michigan, is there for real estate agents a very lengthy sales contract? Is it like 10, 12 pages long? It is here in Texas.
Yeah, and that's pretty standard throughout the country. And it just depends on the type of purchase it is or something like that. For instance, I went through a sale once where the person was buying a home that had been purchased by the city. And so that was way more extensive because we had to go through this, the city council and the city attorney and all that. But most of them are, yeah, they're going to be 10 to 15 pages. You're going to have to sign your name about 37 times and to get it completed.
My perspective, and you might not be able to give yours, and I understand, but my perspective on this is, it's now been, I don't know the term, obfuscated, or it's a degree of difficulty, a degree of complexity to where the average person cannot understand these contracts. And so as me in I'm in Texas, we have something called the TREC promulgated forms, which were created by attorneys and real estate brokers, kind of in union, if I'm understanding that correctly. And every couple of years, it seems like it's getting more and more complicated. And so my perspective is like I get it, people have to protect themselves, but it does make it a little bit inaccessible. I kind of again selfishly feel like maybe it would be better if it was a little bit less. But in your experience, do you feel like these forms are only going to get more and more complex as the years go on?
Yeah, they are. And the reason being is as lawyers, so I do this with my contracts too. I'll draft a contract for company A, right? And then something will happen that contract didn't cover. So when I write a contract for company B, I include that thing that wasn't included the first time. And so that's how they
Yeah.
get to be these behemoths, because you just keep adding and adding and adding, because you don't know what you don't know. And then when something happens that you didn't think about, you add it to the next one. And so I almost guarantee that's going to keep happening with these forms.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
So, in your practices, you talk about trusts and tax expenses. This is kind of new to me. I do need to get into this. I do have an LLC that I do for real estate wholesaling, and I may use it for my real estate commissions as well. But I'm imagining that a lot of the people that are coming to you are high level operators that have very niche or specific questions.
Yeah, so when you speak about trusts specifically, I generally use trusts for two reasons. One, the main thing I do it for is probate avoidance, right? So if you own real estate, that's a titled asset, right? And so if you die while owning that real estate, you have to probate that asset in order to pass it on to your beneficiaries of your estate.
Yeah.
With a trust in place on your personal assets, you don't have to probate anything. It skips the probate court and goes right to the beneficiaries you list. So you save thousands of dollars in months, if not years, of time dealing with the probate court. And so so like you say, you have an LLC. What I would do with you is I would set you up with your own trust. You'd have the Dillon Silver Family Trust, and then I would assign your membership rights, your ownership in your LLC to the trust, so that the trust now owns the LLC. So
Mm,
if something happens to you, the trust continues to run the LLC as if nothing ever happened to you. Whereas you owning it yourself, something happens to you, business ceases,
yeah.
and
I
then you have
mean,
to
this is
probate that business.
this is such an interesting topic. I think right now too, Casey, specifically because as we're seeing an aging population, right? More and more of this is going to start to happen. And as a wholesaler myself, I feel like probate is just a huge issue because it's a headache for the family. They're not attorneys. They might not be real estate people, and this is now they're having to deal with this whole issue, which can take who knows how long. So when you have a trust in Michigan and someone dies, right? Uh,
Yep.
I'm assuming the executor of the trust is able to disperse it somewhat quickly. It's maybe what's a month, 2 months?
Yeah, so Michigan uses a set of laws for that called EPIC, the Estates and Protected Individuals Act, which has actually been adopted by a number of states. I couldn't tell you if Texas is one of them or not, but what that means is most states operate under these same laws. So, uh, when you have a trust in place, you yourself don't own anything. Your trust acts as an entity, but it's a pass-through entity while you're alive. So there's no change in your taxes. You don't have to file a different tax form or anything for it because it's pass-through. But your trust owns everything. So when you die, even if somebody tries to probate your estate, your family goes to court and say, well, he didn't own anything, so there's nothing to probate. Sorry.
Mm.
And so what that does is the trust can actually start to administer immediately after death. As soon as there's a death, the successor trustee, so the one who takes over, can come in and start to administer the trust just like you were running it while you were alive and well. So you're missing out on probate. And probate, they say in the United States, averages somewhere between 5 and 9% of the gross estate of the gross value of the estate. So if you're a real estate investor and you have, you know, 6 $500,000 homes, take 9% of that, and that's what it's going to cost your family to get through the probate process.
Yeah, it's a
So,
mess.
well, and on top of that, you got to remember that that value is not liquid. So
Yeah.
what happens is your family has to start selling assets in order to pay for that those probate expenses as well as death taxes. So avoiding probate saves not just the headache, but it saves thousands of dollars. I drafted a plan for a family last summer that owned several businesses, including some rental properties, and they were valued at around $15 million. And so when I go through, I want to make sure that people understand why we're doing this. So I went through and laid it out for him and his wife and said, this is what you're saving by putting these trusts together. And what we figured out was we ended up saving them over $2 million in fees, costs, and taxes at the point of their death.
Mm.
And again, that's not their $2 million, it's their families. But, we don't want your sons to have to start selling your businesses in order to pay the IRS, right? So
Yeah,
we
I
can
mean,
work things.
th this is a very interesting topic for me. The previous guest on the show actually it lines up with this because he actually was a firefighter, EMT, and college professor. His family member, I believe, was his father, had a stroke of some kind. And he realized that all this information that he needed in case something were to happen to his father, he didn't have. So he ended up writing a book, something about strategic planning, for your family, right? And this kind of coincides with that because like once people are going downhill health wise, it's in some cases too late. Like you're already wrapped up in it. And if hearing about this, I didn't realize, and this is just my ignorance, I didn't realize that there was a pass through. I can't speak for Texas, but hearing about Michigan, it just seems like a no-brainer. Like, do this. You need this because otherwise it's going to be a mess if something were to happen to you.
Yeah, and that's so it's the same, and that's why I do things like these podcasts all the time. The way that I get clients is by educating people because people don't know what they don't know. Especially, the younger generation. If you have a business owner that's in his young 30s, they're going to be like, "Well, I've got 40 more years to live. I don't have to worry about this stuff." Well,
Right.
maybe, hopefully, but you really don't know.
You have no
Um,
idea.
and so, I like to educate people in these areas because most people don't understand. So I tell everybody, if you have kids, cash, or a clue, you should get a trust-based estate plan in place because you never know when you're going to need it. And if, like you said, if something starts to happen, it's probably too late to put stuff in place.
In
So
place.
when I do estate plans for elderly people, I have to kick everybody out of the room and ask them a series of questions to test their cognitive ability,
Competency. Yeah.
right? So if they start to answer those questions wrong or can't answer those questions, then we can no longer they're no longer legally allowed to sign a contract. So they can't draw up any power of attorney documents, a will, a trust, anything like that.
So if someone's in that state, right, and they've already appointed a power of attorney, is the power of attorney able to create a trust if the trust is in that elderly person's name, or is it kind of too little too late?
It's kind of too late at that point. So, the power of attorney gives you access to your financial. So there's two power of attorneys really. There's a financial power of attorney and a healthcare. The one gives you access to the financials, so you can go to the bank, so you can continue to pay their bills, pay their mortgage, their electricity, whatever it might be. The other one is for making your medical decisions. And they're really pretty narrow um, to what they can and can't do. You can draft them so that a trust might be able to be drafted by the power of attorney, but um, I wouldn't recommend waiting
That
until that
long.
point, because now all these decisions that are being made about your estate are being made by somebody else, not you.
Else. How common is it that you're seeing people wait until that 11th hour versus people, I'm 31. I have a company that, I don't have any deeds in my name yet. I don't have, or an LLC that I own, but I hope to one day. And I've never thought about a trust because just like you said, rather foolishly, I was thinking I have forever. Who cares? My time's not coming anytime soon. But how often are you seeing elderly cases like that?
It's most of the time.
Ugh,
Um, Most of the time, my clients that come in for estate planning are one of two. They're business owners with large estates, or they're retired, and they're like, okay, it's time to put something together. And you know what? So I'm 43, right? Um, and part of my presentations that I give is I show them a picture of the accident I was in 2009 when I was 27 years old. Um, I was in a bad car accident and I was pronounced dead at the scene.
jeez
Um,
Louise.
and so I tell people, I was 27 at that time. Did I wake up that morning knowing I was going to die? No, I didn't. I mean, clearly I didn't, something changed, but they got me to the hospital and fixed me up. But you just never know. And that's why I say, especially if you have kids, you want to make sure you get that stuff in place, because if you if you own a home and you have minor children and you die, those minor children are going to go into child protective services, and they're going to be put in foster homes until the court decides who gets to take care of them the rest of their lives. Whereas if you have the plan in place, you decide who takes care of them, and that person can take them immediately. They could take them right from the scene of the accident, right? And so um like I said, you just don't know. You don't know
You
what's going
don't.
to happen, so make sure you have a plan in play, plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? So yeah.
Is the process of administering the trust a court process? Are people having to go to court after death, or how does this happen? Is it anything related to that, or is it pretty much you have the trust in place, therefore you can go and shoot
Yep.
once this happens, you have the right to go ahead and execute it.
Yep. So a trust is a contract that you have written with yourself. So you wrote yourself a contract saying, this is what I'm going to do with my assets while I'm alive and well. After I pass away, this is what, you know, Steve's going to do with my assets. And your successor trustee is under a fiduciary duty to follow the rules that we put in place for him. So they can start, there's no court involvement with trust administration whatsoever. The only time there would be a court is if somebody wants to argue the trust. Somebody wants to fight the trust and say the trustee is not doing what I think the trust says. Then that would go to court. But other than that, no, it's the administration is done um, outside of court. And the best part about keeping it outside of court is it's all private, because once something goes to court, it's all public record. But by being able to skip court, everything stays private.
So I'm totally new to this, and I probably should know, but I don't. The trust is both a set of rules, effectively a document, and an individual who executes it. Is that correct on some level?
So the trust is just a set of documents.
Okay.
Okay. And then in those documents, there are three roles involved. The first role is the grantor, and that's the person who drafts it. That's the person who creates it. So if you set up a trust for you and your family, you would be the grantor. The second is the trustee. That's the person who manages the trust assets. So the trustee is similar to the personal executive or the executor of an estate through probate, but they're the ones that are in charge of taking care of those assets. So when you first do it, you're the trustee and the grantor. And then the third role is the beneficiary. Those are the people that benefit from the trust assets. So if it's Businesses, they're going to, get the income from those businesses. If it's property, they get to now own those property and any gains from those properties when they sell. Um, so when you first do a trust, you are all three roles. And so while you're all three roles, you're pretty much not limited at all to what you can do with your assets. You can control them how you want. It's planning mostly for those times when you're no longer in control. So if you become mentally disabled or if you pass away, you want to make sure that you have those things in place that are written in the trust document that says this is who the trustee is, and this is what the trustee needs to be doing.
Got it. Yeah, this is critical information. I think younger people with businesses, whichever state they're in, need to look at this. But we are coming up on time here, Casey. Where can folks go in the Michigan area to get a hold of you?
Yep. So I'm actually based out of Okemos, Michigan, which is just east of Lansing. But I can go statewide and I can do virtual. Um, and I'm also licensed in the United States Tax Court, which means I can talk tax law in any of the United States states. So if you have tax questions, you can contact me. But the best way to learn more about me and what I do with businesses and estates is by hitting up my website. That's just CaseyDConklin.com.
Casey, thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.